Hey, it's Howie Mandel, and I am inviting you to witness history as me and my Howie Do It gaming team take on Gilly the King and Wallow 267's $1 million gaming in an epic global gaming league video game showdown. 4 rounds, multiple games, 1 winner, plus a halftime performance by multi-platinum artist Travie McCoy. Watch all the action and see who wins and advances to the championship match against Neo right now at globalgamingleague.com. That's globalgamingleague.com. Everybody games.
What's going on, Los Angeles, Bruin Nation, LAFB fam, your dynamic duo, the Thriller and Madman, back together again for all of your UCLA sports needs. And tonight, Selection Sunday, Oscar Sunday, so much to unpack here, Thriller. Obviously, we got together Thursday, Friday. We had a little bit of connectivity issues yesterday, in terms of post-game. But here we are, Sunday, third time in 4 days. The march is upon us here, Thriller. And before we get all into it, how was your weekend, brother? And how's any hot takes with the Oscars?
Man, loved everything about it. So happy to be back on with you again, brother. Hot takes with the Oscars. I thought Michael B. deserved it. I think there's a little half and half right now in the Oscar win, but the dude played 2 characters at once, which I thought was very impressive, and not many actors can pull that off. I'm going to give him a ton of credit on that. And guys, we're doing 4s up for 4K subscribers. Keep hitting that subscribers button, guys. I saw we made a big jump after the live win over Michigan State. Keep going, guys. We are trying to get to that 4K mark. Life is good, man. We're about to get the tournament. Madman and I are going to be recapping each tournament game. I'm sure we're going to do the women's games as well.
Yes.
When it comes to them being up in Sacramento and them having a 1 seed. So if you guys are looking for the best UCLA content out there, we strive to give that. So guys, please like and subscribe because we're doing everything we can to give you guys just that.
Love that, Thriller. Absolutely. Like we've tabbed the campaign. We love doing this so much. It's 4s up, 4K, heading into football season in the fall, of course. But Thriller, here we are, Selection Sunday. Officially, the season and the Big Ten tournament is behind us. Obviously, just kind of recapping yesterday, what a valiant effort UCLA put up against Purdue. Obviously Donnie Dent goes down, 9 minutes of playing time into the game, about little over, midway through the first half. You're a little bit concerned there. Lower body injury, hamstring. There was some concerns. And Cronin, to his credit, said, look, I'm not even going to risk this in the second half. We're going to shut him down. Both Dent and Bilodeau look like they're going to be ready to go Friday night for the first round, which is absolutely huge news. This is a full-strength UCLA team. But Thriller, like we talked about, without arguably their 2 best players and certainly, their 2 best kind of shot creators and shot takers, if you will. This team battled Purdue all the way to the end. Purdue, after that injury, you could tell the game changed a little bit. They went up double figures. They went all the way up to 13. UCLA in the second half, I thought Daly, Perry were phenomenal. Sky Clark was terrific. Hung in there between 10 and 13. And then Xavier Booker, Thriller, had some pick and pop 3 balls, had that incredible dunk and some tenacious perimeter defense. UCLA whittles that lead down to 4, ties the game with 3 minutes to go, and you're thinking this could potentially happen. Perry was looking so smooth on those pick and rolls to the elbow. Clark was hitting his shots. He had Booker on the pick and pop. I thought Freeney and Williams were phenomenal. Freeney with early offense, Williams cutting to the basket, almost there, and then you sort of just missed your point guard in that last 3 minutes, rightfully so. I thought Purdue kind of had a little bit more of an identity that final 3 minutes. They knew where they wanted to go with the ball. and just couldn't get that rebound. They just couldn't get that rebound there down the stretch. But man, oh man, was that such a valiant performance without their two best players. And really, in a change of scene, Thriller, Cronin was so positive in the post game after that game of just how proud he was about that team. And then you see what Purdue came back and did today, Thriller, against Michigan.
Yeah,
really sort of taking it to Michigan, really down the stretch of that game, and you're taking a step back and saying, man, we played Purdue tougher without our two best players than Michigan played Purdue. I mean, when you think about point differential. So between what we have seen, Thriller, these last 3 or 4 weeks closing into the season, and even what we've seen in terms of in a loss with Purdue, you got to feel really good about this UCLA team heading into March. And that's where March takes us, Thriller. And I'll hand it over to you. We got the 7 seed that we expected after that win against Michigan State. We had a feeling it wasn't going to be the West region, even though it was going to be a 7. We end up in Duke's region, potential kind of matchup with UConn as the 2 seed. So we got Duke as the 1, UConn as the 2, Michigan State as the 3, Kansas as the 4 in terms of this particular bracket in the East region. But my, oh my, it feels like a bit of a murderer's row, Thriller. But I want to get your take because I have some thoughts on this region. But 7 seed in the East, we open Friday night. But here are the top 4. Feels like a very, very strong region, Thriller. Your thoughts on the bracket and UCLA's chances?
Yeah. First, I want to talk about the Purdue game a little bit on that, just because I thought it was such a valiant fight that they put up, man. I mean, we were down 15-2 to start that game. You rally back with a 15-2 run in your own right. We're knotted at 17. Dent goes down. Bilodeau's out. And I was just so impressed by the team again. Brandon Williams' game off the bench was kind of the game before. Freeney stepping up, hitting big shots, 3 offensive rebounds. And the guy I was most impressed with, and he's been my favorite player all year long, was Trent Perry. 9 assists, as a creator, stepping up while Dent is gone. Come on, man. This is what Trent Perry's all about for this team. We're getting a consistent effort out there from Eric Daly on the scoring, which I think is big. And, Mick was right to be proud of his team, man. When your 2 best players are down and you have the eventual Big Ten champions on the ropes like that, that's a hell of a performance. I think that really bodes well for UCLA if Dent and Bilodeau could be the players that we saw prior to the injuries. So first and foremost, just want to shout that out right there. But when it comes to the bracket, man, it is a murderer's row on paper. Man, we're talking about 4 national champion coaches in this region alone with Hurley, Self, Izzo, and Patino.
Yep.
It's a really, really strong group in there. I mean, even teams like Ohio State as the 8th, that's a damn good team right there. That took Michigan to the brink the other day. So this region's loaded, man. And I think there's a lot of teams in there. If we hypothetically beat a very talented UCF team that's coached by Johnny Dawkins that has 5 quadrant 1 wins, we're going to be playing, Danny Hurley. Danny Hurley against Mick Cronin. Who is not watching that game to watch the sidelines between those 2 coaches just go crazy? And a lot of teams in here, man, I just think St. John's, they smoked a very, very good UConn team in the Big Ten championship. Rick Pitino, you can never count him out. I mean, dude, it's just so loaded on so many fronts. Michigan State, we're going to have to play Izzo again. And, I think Izzo, they got kind of humbled in the Big Ten tournament against us. He's lighting a fire under those kids' asses as we speak to try to get them ready to rock. So, man, it's tough. Kansas, I mean, if we get the good version of Darren Peterson, that team could beat anybody. And they've kind of struggled down the stretch. Who makes you most nervous on paper outside of Duke, in this region? Because I think Duke, we all admit, maybe the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, but just the cast of characters, you got to fight to maybe get to that, matchup with Duke. It's about as good as I've seen a bracket in a long, long time, Madman.
Thriller, I'll be honest with you. It's really interesting because it's a loaded region. But, what I find fascinating is that you've got Duke as the 1, you've got Kansas as the 4, and you've got St. John's as the 5. And so they're all in kind of that sub bracket together, right? They're the ones that they're in the same Elite 8 path. And when you think about UCLA, and that's sort of a murderer's row, there's no question about it. When you think about UCLA's path to the Elite 8, let's say, look, Central Florida, really good team. Johnny Dawkins. I mean, you remember that Central Florida team from many years ago, Thriller, kind of taking that Zion Duke team to the brink,
Oh, yeah.
right? You remember that. And that was coached by Dawkins as well. And so, like, it was very special to sort of see that this is going to be a very well-coached team in Philly, East region, East Coast time zone. Certainly not a game that you can take for granted. But if UCLA can kind of get through that game, Thriller, I have to be honest, even though UConn is been the team of the 2020s, no question about it, and Hurley is arguably the best coach in the sport, I don't think UConn's even the best team in the Big East. And I think, St. John's, they opened up a can on them in the tournament. They beat them earlier in the season. UConn got them back pretty handily as well. But I think UConn at the 2 right now, I think 2 things. One, I don't think they're the best team in the Big East, number 1. And number 2 is I don't think the Big East was that deep this year. And I don't know if the Big East was a great preparation for UConn heading into the tournament. And I think UConn played a great non-conference. They played a lot of really good non-conference teams. I think Hurley kind of sensed that he needed to do that because the Big East was a little bit lighter. Yeah. But I think the combination of UConn not necessarily, over a 3-month period, if you're not going to get kind of pushed in conference play with a lot of physicality, and then they ran into a St. John's team and Rick Pitino that really, really has a very identified game plan, that full court press, just the physical basketball. I really love our chances against this UConn team because I don't know if they have kind of those top end players that they had those 2 years when they won the national championship. And so to me, Central Florida, UConn in that second round, look, Michigan State's going to be a battle. That's going to be a bar fight if they get there. But you got to love the fact that we beat them just a couple days ago. And so to me,
confidence,
we got confidence, Thriller. We got confidence there. I'm going to be very honest with you. The team that scares me the most in this region is St. John's. I think that UCLA, here's my take. UCLA will play St. John's in the Elite Eight. I think St. John's
is going to knock
off Duke. Yeah.
Wow. Especially after Shire and that company blew the national championship last year.
I think St. John. I have been a historian of the game, Thriller, as are you. Rick Pitino is someone that you don't bet against. It's
kind of Lane Kiffin for college basketball. You know what I mean? A little older,
and
but
won it all with Kentucky.
Kind of muddies it up with a little controversy. Maybe he's not on Twitter.
But I mean, it's undeniable. That second Tubby, that 98 Kentucky national champion with Tubby Smith, that was Pitino's national championship. He won it in 96. If he stayed and didn't go to the Celtics, he would have won it again. He comes back, wins it against Louisville.
Larry Bird is not walking through that door.
No, sir. No, sir. But I just think that the way St. John's plays in terms of the physicality, but also the way they space the floor, I think is just going to give Duke a lot of problems. And historically, Pitino has always been able to scheme up against one great player. And I just don't know if Duke has the depth of talent this year to be able to match it. I'll be very honest with you. They got pushed to the ACC tournament. They won it, of course. They're very deservingly so a number 1 seed. But I think St. John's is going to play UCLA in the East Regional Final. That's the team that scares me the most, Thriller. That's the team that I have my eye on. I believe this UCLA team will beat UCF, will beat UConn in the second round, and win their Sweet 16 game, whether it's Michigan State or someone else, and we'll have to go up against Rick Pitino and St. John's in the Elite Eight. That's the team I've got my eye on.
I'm with you. I think I'm very scared of St. John's. They dominated UConn in the Big Ten or the Big East championship. A 20-point victory like that. You don't see Danny Early. You may see them get beat, but you don't see them get smoked like that. And I just think if it's all about momentum rolling into the tournament, they're the hot team right now. It makes a lot of sense compared to a team like Michigan State or Kansas that lost pretty early relative to where they're at in their conference tournament. They're kind of coming in with not as much tread on the tires as you would like to see. So, but I mean, UCF, man, this is a really good team in its own right too. And just to give them credit, very well-balanced team. They have some really star transfer players in Kugel and Burks coming from Florida and Kentucky in their respective manners. So these guys can play, man. Like, Riley Kugel was as good of a guard out there as a lot of people saw. He's got a chance to make like second team all Big 12. So the sheer guard play for, UCLA, who's had Dent playing the best basketball in the country at the point guard position, going against UCF and, their guys in Fulks and Kugel, it's going to be must watch, man. And the thing that they have that at times UCLA did not have is they have 4 consistent scorers that usually get them double figures each and every night.
Right.
And, we're at times it felt like we could get there with Bilodeau, but Dent could have an off night, or, Perry or somebody would get there, but, Eric Daly can't get it going. It just felt like a lot of times with this UCLA team, we haven't been able to find that stride. However, the last 10 games, you've seen that from UCLA where they can get scoring in bunches. Sky Clark is going off. Trent Perry's getting buckets. Booker even had double figures yesterday. So, like, if the scoring's on our side and the facilitation of Donovan Dent, where he's averaging close to 12 assists to 1 turnover a game, I'm rolling with the Bruins. I need to see Bilodeau out there. I'm really excited to see what he looks like as a healthy player coming back from a big-time injury, man. But this is not going to be a walk in the park. Do you agree with me on that for UCF?
No, it will not be, Thriller. To your point, 4 guys in double figures. You talked about Fugel, you talked about Burks. They're very, very talented, very, very balanced. And they played in a really good conference. The Big 12 is loaded this year. And so super battle tested, and they're going to be ready to go. I think what's going to be interesting with UCF is, to your point about momentum, they're coming into the tournament having lost 4 of 5, right?
Yeah.
And their only win was a 1-point win against Cincinnati in overtime, although that was the only win out of the 5. So we know the question is going to be, is it the team that kind of got to 20-9, or is it this team that's sort of 1-4? And I think that's sort of the Jekyll and the Hyde here of this situation. But 100%, you got 4 really good guards that are ready to go. I think what's interesting, though, Thriller, about UCLA, it almost feels like the best way for UCLA to get into the tournament in a very weird way, right? Like, think about it, because UCLA's played their best ball, but the run got kind of cut short because of injury in the Big Ten tournament. They're, knock on wood, they're not serious injuries. But how many times have you seen a team in this day and age of college basketball the last 20 years where they make this incredible run, 4 wins in 4 days, 5 wins in 5 days sometimes, and win that conference tournament, and then they got nothing in the tank for the NCAA tournament. They're out in the first round. And to me, it almost was a situation where had UCLA, had Dent, we feel like they could have won the game against Purdue. The way we saw Sunday between Purdue and Michigan, who's to say UCLA couldn't beat Michigan? Because I think Michigan is sort of, they're not on their A game right now. This was a little bit of a shaky.
In the semifinals, and then, lost to Purdue. So, like, they were close.
Ohio State had a really tough game against Ohio State. Wisconsin, obviously, it came down to the final seconds, and then to lose this game. So Michigan was a little wobbly going into that game. To me, if Dent can just kind of pick up where he left off, from this weekend, with that sense of, man, we left something on the court there. There was some bad luck. And Bilodeau and Dent are healthy. Now you have this depth with Freeney and Williams, and you're fresh because the run kind of ended on Saturday. And now you have a full 5.5, 6 days to get ready for the NCAA tournament. In a weird way, UCLA is almost going into the tournament in the perfect way, where they have both momentum and they're going to have rest, and they're going to have sort of this sense of urgency that they're on the cusp of playing their best basketball, and it hasn't happened yet. And so I think it's going to be this sort of perfect storm. I believe there's a run here. I believe this team's going to win at least 3 games in this tournament and get to the Elite 8, and then who knows what happens after that. So I'm actually very, very excited. But again, they're going to have to come in, to your point, Thriller, with that same intensity and pick up right where they left off. This isn't going to be a slow ramp into the tournament, because to your point, this UCF team battle tested in the Big 12, got all the way to 20-9. So you're going to have to bring your A game Friday night from the tip.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to see how this happens because, yes, they might be minor injuries, but you remember what happened with a minor injury earlier in the year with Donovan Dent.
Yeah.
We need that version of Dent coming out and playing at his best. So I got to see him look the sharp part that we know him to be. If he comes out, first half like he did against Michigan State, I'm going, oh, yeah, we got a shot to win this whole region. Like, I don't even care. But it's going to come down to that. These injuries are so unfortunate. I'm going to pose you a question I didn't even think I was going to ask coming into this podcast. Are conference championship tournaments, are you pro or against them? Because I think what the fan bases are looking at, and I think I would pivot this more just to Power 4 conferences as a whole, where the smaller schools, it makes sense for them to try to earn that spot outright to go. For the bigger conferences, these are games. Even Mick said in the post game, he's like, even if they were, healthy enough on paper, I don't know if I'd play them in the championship game because it doesn't matter. We got to make sure they're healthy for the real games. Do you think conference tournaments are a good thing at this point in time for people, trying to get prepared for the NCAA tournament?
I don't. I don't think they have any value, frankly, if you're in a Power 4 conference, because here's the thing. In a conference like the Big Ten, you have 20 conference games.
It's a lot.
It's 20 conference games. So if that's plenty of a body of work to be able to demonstrate whether you should be a conference champion, whether you should be a formidable NCAA tournament team, whether you're a bubble team, or whether you're out. And so to me, very little is achieved in this conference tournament. Like Michigan, we talked about it. They sort of sleptwalked a little bit through the tournament, didn't win the tournament. Doesn't change the fact, that they're a top line team.
Florida lost to Vanderbilt, like still a 1 seed.
Still a 1. So it doesn't really matter in that regard. And I think that now that we are getting to a place where, the consolidation of power in these major conferences is at kind of the Power 4, or in college football, kind of almost the Power 2. Really, I mean, the same conversation we're having in college football, right? Thriller is like, do you need a conference championship game? And, it seems like it's almost like a disadvantage, right? In terms of like your seeding for the playoff. And here it feels like a disadvantage because I know there was a lot on Twitter about the injuries, right? I mean, look, 2023, right? Everything started with Clark and Bona because of the conference tournament. And then this year, of course, we lose Dent and Bilodeau. This year, thankfully, they're minor injuries where they're going to be ready to go. Obviously, 2023, it cost us dearly without having those two guys. So I'm totally with that sentiment. I don't know what it's actually accomplishing. I think very rarely are you going to be in a situation where you were like off the bubble and you're going to be firmly on the bubble. Because here's, I think, the thing that people don't realize, where it's like last 4 in, first 4 out, next 4 out. Those 8 teams, 12 teams, it's such a judgment call no matter what. Like, even if they play an extra game or two, it's so rare for a team to go from, say, next 4 out to, like, firmly in, right? Like, even a conference, outside of winning the conference tournament, to make that jump to be, like, next 4 out to firmly in is such a massive jump, with the exception of winning the conference tournament. So even if you play the conference tournament, you win a game, you win 2 games. At the end of the day, that last 4 in, first 4 out, next 4 out, it's such a judgment call. You're putting up strength of schedule up there, strength of record, quad 1 wins, et cetera, looking at the conference. It's not an exact science, and it's not going to be an exact science even if you play 1 or 2 more conference games. So to me, it's such a rare occurrence that some bad team is going to get hot 4 games in 4 nights. And now think about it, Thriller, with like the Big Ten tournament. Like, it's like UCLA's first game was really the 3rd round. If you're a really bad team, you have to win 6 games in 6 nights. Or if you're like a mediocre to bad, you got to win 5 games in 5 nights. The probability of that happening is so low, considering who you are getting in. I'm with you. I don't really see the purpose here.
Yeah, I lean that way. I do think there are some positives to it, like playing the amount of games you need to in a quick amount of time. I do think that helps prepare you for the March atmosphere because, we've had times with UCLA where we'll play a game on Saturday and don't play till the next weekend,
right?
With the travel schedule. that kind of throws you off a bit. It's almost like training for the tournament for the teams that are going, where it's like you want to practice harder than you play sometimes. So like the schedule is so stacked where it's like, okay, we at least have a day off in between the Thursday or the Saturday. And thank God for UCLA fans, we got the Friday game and the Sunday game. Friday night, come on. I don't have work the next day. I can enjoy this UCLA basketball game. I'm sure you and I are going to be watching that live.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. I think for the smaller conferences, I think it's cool because they need it for an outright winner of their conference. Where that makes sense to me. But I think for the teams that are in the Power Four, the bigger conferences, like did Florida losing today change my opinion on Florida basketball? No, it didn't. Like they won the whole thing last year. Like they've got a shot to win it again this year, as good as anybody, in my opinion. So I think it's really interesting to kind of click in on that, man. And
no, Thriller, it's such a great point. And the interesting piece is, though, like if you think about March Madness, right, the main tournament, nobody plays back to back, right? Like it's still sort of like it's a Thursday, Saturday, Friday, Sunday, and then you have the week off, and then you go do it again. So it does kind of mirror your conference schedule, right? Like historically in the Pac-12, it used to be like Thursday, Saturday, Friday, Sunday. And now in the Big Ten, we're more like a Sunday, Tuesday than Sunday, Tuesday, or like a Saturday, Wednesday sometimes. So, I mean, I totally hear you with the travel. It gets sort of wonky. But like even if in the big tournament, you're not playing 3 games in 3 days, or you're not even having back-to-backs, I think Mick was so wise in not rushing Donnie back because he was like, look, okay, great. I mean, like, if we try and make a run and win the Big Ten tournament, like think about it from a Cronin perspective. He's like, yeah, they're going to celebrate me for like 24 hours if I win the Big Ten tournament. But if my whole team burns out and we lose in the first round to UCF, they're going to be ready to burn down my house at Encino again. So it's like, you have to think about the larger prize. It's nice to win these conference tournaments. It's fun. It's part of the excitement of March. But does it actually serve a purpose? Does it actually help you, sort of achieve your greater goals? Like it'd be one thing if you won your conference tournament, you got something for it, right? Like not just the automatic bid, but, you got a home court in the game in the first round, or you were sort of guaranteed a top 4 seed in your region. If there was some significant incentive there, then absolutely. But if it's just to kind of keep playing with the seeding and have more evidence and more samples before Selection Sunday, then, I get why it's fun, the ratings, it's all of that. But I don't know if it actually serves a purpose for you to win a national championship.
And a different conversation for a different day, but that's my beef with the NBA midseason tournament. It's like you're just going to give these multi-millionaires $500,000 where I'm like, sure, I'm sure everybody wants that, but put some stakes on it. This would actually make it fun. And it just kind of feels like winning the NL West title, not the World Series, but the NL West specifically. Like the Dodgers didn't win the NL West last year. And like, look what they did. Like, we don't care about that. So like, that's my kind of stance with the conference tournament, man. But, it is fun just to have consistent basketball. I was with a bunch of, I know it sucks to say, but I was with a bunch of Arizona fans this weekend and just some friends from childhood. They all went there and they wanted to watch the Big 12 championship at Shellbacks when we were out there. We had a great time watching some college ball and catching up. So I do love it for the constant, basketball junkies that we are, that we have to go watch some games. But man, I mean, save the guys for the tournament, man. It's clear as day.
No question about it, Thriller. Well, Thriller, let me get your thoughts here. I feel like this is an Elite Eight run, and then it's going to be a game against St. John's, and then it's sort of a pick'em at that point. I mean, I could see a world where, UCLA goes to the Final Four. I think it's going to be Elite Eight and beyond is sort of my thinking. With even though this bracket is so challenging, call me insane, call me a homer, whatever the case may be. But I genuinely believe the way this team has played the last 3 weeks, which has been consistent with your and my preseason expectation of this team, this is an Elite Eight basketball team, and with an opportunity for more. Where do you see this team finishing this tournament, given this region, and where is your expectation?
It's tough because I think if we had an easier bracket, I would have such a more easy attempt at us, getting that Elite Eight, maybe even Final Four status. I'm not ready to rule that out, but it's just I need to see Dent and Bilodeau healthy. That is like a big thing
No,
for me.
for sure. And
When your
that's
two
my
best guys are
prerequisite
like
too.
that,
They got to be healthy. I mean, they got to be healthy for sure.
when the two breadwinners of the team are not right, like that's a big thing for me. So I got to see what they look like. But if they're healthy, if they have it, do I think we could beat a UCF team? I do. I give UCF a lot of credit. I think they're going to be a harder out than I think a lot of people would think. But I think we can win that game. I think we should win that game. Then you go and play UConn, a team that just hasn't felt like the same UConn of the past few years. And I think it's going to be a battle. If you can scrape there, and I know Seth Davis, the national college basketball broadcaster, he actually picked us to beat UConn today on air. So I think he believes it can happen. I believe it can happen. So you get by UConn, man. And I think it's that similar effect to what Russell was talking about on that 2021 team. If you beat that name brand in the tournament, like Michigan State was that name brand in the last four in, where it's like, we just beat Tom Izzo and the Spartan. We could hang with anybody.
Yeah.
I think for this generation, where it's like this UConn team that went back to back, they're truly one of the great coach teams and faces of college basketball on the men's and women's side. Dude, by the way, what if we beat UConn with both teams in the tournament this year, the men's and the women's? I mean, how sweet would that be? A little redemption on the female side, which would be amazing. So if you beat that UConn team, man, I think you could beat anybody. Kansas, I mean, I want to rule them out, but just the athletes that team has, if they're at their peak, they should have been a two seed if Peterson was kind of locked in all year, in my opinion. So that's going to be tough. We talked about St. John's, but dude, why not us? Michigan State's going to have vengeance out for us, but we've already beaten them. Like, I think we can make it to the Elite Eight. Duke is going to be tough, but if it's us playing St. John's, I actually like that matchup better right now than the Dukies. So bring it on, man. Like us, it's been us against the world this entire season. Let's keep it running, man. Let's keep the car running.
Let's keep it running, brother. I'll tell you before we get out of here, Kansas is a fascinating team, to your point, right? Because Peterson, it's DeBonsa and it's Peterson, right? Are these two prospects?
This Arkansas guard is unbelievable. Yeah.
No, those three guys are phenomenal. But there's something off about Kansas's chemistry this year, isn't there? With Peterson. And it's just one of those where he feels a little disconnected from the team. I know, the cramps, there's a lot of these issues and whatnot. So, if they can find it, and with that level of athlete, I agree with you. I mean, I think pound for pound, like just roster construction wise, just pound for pound paper talent, I think they're better than Duke. I think they can do all kinds of things. I just don't know about the chemistry there, Thriller. And I think if they could be a team, I'll be honest with you, with their chemistry issues, I could see them lose the 4-13 first round game. Just, it's sort of set up that way. They
lost like way too early in the Big 12, where it was there. We don't put a ton of stock into these conference tournaments, but you got to at least get to the semifinals for me.
Yeah.
Like if you're not in the semifinals, it seems like a team that's checked out. Like, sure, Michigan lost today. Sure, Florida lost today. UConn.
But they were there on the last day.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They put together a good resume. When Kansas is losing before these semis, I'm like, when is the last time that happened?
Exactly.
What I mean?
Exactly. And that's why Kansas is a little bit of an oddball, but you never know what could happen there. That's why I think in that elite in the Sweet 16 contest, I actually think it's going to be St. John's at the 5 playing Duke. And that's where I like St. John's, just with Pitino and the momentum that he's built. I just think it's going to be this is a phenomenal region, Thriller. Why not us? Guard play is critical, and we're finally at a place where we've got all three guards clicking at the same time. Obviously, this is predicated on Dent's health and Bilodeau's health, but Dent, Perry, and Clark playing the way they're playing. You've got Freeney coming off the bench. And
8-man roster. 8-man rotation now. It's great.
Rotation. You got Daly running up and down the court playing, two-way basketball so well. Bilodeau's your craftsman, in the half court. Booker's your wild card, your rim runner, a guy on pick and pop. And then you got Williams as your glue guy as well, with all the great cuts, all the great finishes, the ability to rebound. I just love this team. It feels like they found it's clicked the last 3 weeks, and this is set up now. God willing, knock on wood, the health is there. I just think this team, there's a magic here. You know, the fact that they were able to play Purdue without these two best players tougher than the way Michigan played Purdue. I get it. It's the end of the tournament. Third game in 3 days. Everyone's tired. Everyone's kind of looking ahead. I get all of that. But you can't walk away now from this regular season and then the way this team has played in the last 3 weeks and the way this tournament played out telling me this wasn't a top 2 or top 3 team in the Big Ten. I think it was a top 2 team in the Big Ten, and I think the level of preparation that the Big Ten provides teams for the NCAA tournament is why I believe this team will be in the Elite Eight and standing with an opportunity to win it all, to cut down all the nets, because that's where UCLA belongs at the pinnacle of this sport.
Oh, man, could not agree anymore, man. And just, it's exciting times. This is what we wait for all year, especially at a blue blood college basketball institution like UCLA is. We do the football show. We love football. But what UCLA fans care about the most is the men and women in the basketball, uniforms at Pauley Pavilion playing ball. And
no question,
brother. To get, man. So it's exciting times, man. Just another great episode we were able to log. But I just implore you guys, we are doing the 4s Up for 4K subscribers. Myself and Madman, we are just trying to do this as long as we can and give you guys everything we got when it comes to UCLA coverage. We can only do that if you guys like and subscribe our show. We're trying to get to 4K subscribers. It costs you nothing. We are just over 2,600 subscribers right now. It's been amazing to watch. We are trying to get to that 4K. Can you guys help us out with a like and subscribe, man? But, Madman, any final words before we jet on out of here, my brother?
Thriller, and, just a huge, massive shout-out also to the Lady Bruins. I know we didn't talk about them a ton on this show. This was kind of men's basketball focus. Look, the Lady Bruins content and conversation is going to elevate, I would say, next week, because this team is so good as a one, the 116 and the 189 game, is no disrespect to those teams that the Lady Bruins are going to be playing. But the reality of the situation is the way this season has gone, how great and dominant this team is, and what the level of expectation is. This tournament really only begins in the Elite Eight for the Lady Bruins. And when it begins, we're going to be all up into it. They got Duke also. It's interesting, right, Thriller, that the Lady Bruins and the men Bruins have Duke in the same region. They got Duke. They got LSU. That LSU one, that's a little tricky there. That could be a very interesting Elite Eight competition. But I think we got our eyes on the massive prize there. There's a potential path here, Thriller, either Duke or LSU, and then you're potentially looking at maybe a Texas or a South Carolina, and then UConn. We want UConn. We want the rematch. We want them to be undefeated as the defending national champion, and we want to dethrone them, and that's exactly what's going to happen. I love that reaction. Shout out to Bob Chesney being at the selection watch party for the Lady Bruins, and you kind of just saw the body language in the air when UConn was announced as the number 1 overall seed. It just the Lady Bruins are playing with the right edge. I'm almost thrilled that UCLA was not the number 1 overall seed in the women's tournament, because I don't think that the number 1 overall seed thing doesn't actually matter in terms of everyone's kind of a 1. But I think it's just another edge. It's another chip on the shoulder and enough kind of juice to bring it over the top. Lady Bruins are going to win the whole thing, and we can't wait to cover it. And the men, Elite Eight, baby, Elite Eight, and this thing is going to start. And so, folks, before we get out of here, it's March. It's our sport. We're the ultimate blue blood of blue bloods, 11 natties. Let's see if we can get to number 12. Be loud, be proud, be passionate, Bruins. And until we see you in a few days, prepping for UCF, 4s Up forever, baby.
Hey, it's Howie Mandel, and I am inviting you to witness history as me and my Howie Do It gaming team take on Gilly the King and Wallow 267's $1 million gaming in an epic global gaming league video game showdown. 4 rounds, multiple games, 1 winner, plus a halftime performance by multi-platinum artist Travie McCoy. Watch all the action and see who wins and advances to the championship match against Neo right now at globalgamingleague.com. That's globalgamingleague.com. Everybody games.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.